On the 16th of June 2020, Valve decided to take their first drastic measures against the bot crisis in a while by muting any and all free-to-play accounts created for TF2. From this update onwards, free-to-play accounts could no longer communicate via voice or text chat, could no longer spam voice lines in-game, and could no longer call for medic in official Valve servers. This was an absolutely shocking update to receive, considering how TF2 is, and will be now forever, a free-to-play game. But to Valve's credit, this measure to stop bots from spamming obscenities in both the text and voice chat did work for about 4 minutes before all of the bad actors decided, the premiums aren't actually that expensive. I can just buy more. I can just buy the things. And come sunshine the next day, things have returned to normal like nothing had ever happened. And almost exactly 5 years later, this is where we find ourselves still. Free-to-plays are still unable to communicate via voice and text chat, they are still unable to call for help via voice lines, and they still cannot call for medic in official Valve servers. This just isn't acceptable. So, hello everyone, my name's Montague, and I've had an active hand in writing an open letter towards Valve addressing this issue. It's time free-to-play accounts be able to communicate in this free-to-play game again. Now, you probably have a lot of questions surrounding this movement, so allow this, hopefully, short video to either answer them for you or guide you to a place where you could find your answers. First off, what is this movement and why is it happening? So, this is not a fixed TF2 movement in terms of scale, but we're going for a similar goal. A public letter has been written to Valve addressing the complaints of the community for free-to-play accounts still not being able to communicate 5 years later. We believe the initial decision to do this was unjust and we'd like it reverted. TF2 currently and for the past 5 years has been a pay-to-win game, as actively paying for a premium account gives you a humongous advantage over those who don't. We believe this goes against the core philosophy of what TF2 was originally meant to be, hence why this movement exists. We understand why Valve wouldn't want to have initially reverted these changes when they started to take major action against the bots during the fixed TF2 protest, but both a long enough amount of time has passed since then for us to safely say that free-to-plays should still be able to communicate, and the fact that this decision did not positively impact the game to begin with. These changes need to be reverted and free-to-play accounts need to be able to communicate again. This is a community-wide movement, this is not just something a few people are doing for the fun of it. If we pull up the letter again, you'll find that a few of your favourite content creators are backing this movement, but I have to also say that this is not a fixed TF2 movement. We're not necessarily looking to protest online. The goal of this movement is to deliver a letter to Valve. However, we are currently collecting signatures if you'd like your name to be a part of this. I'm going to have a link to the official informative Discord server for this movement down below, so if you'd like to join and learn more about how you could help, then that's the best place to do it. The 31st of March is the end date for the signature collection and the letter is looking to be delivered on April 3rd, so clocks are ticking. Again, not a fixed TF2 movement, not a fixed TF2 protest, just an open letter to Valve backed by some of the community's largest and most vocal voices. Speaking of, however, I am going to have to address some of the largest criticisms this movement has already faced. Because if you could believe it, shock horror, some people don't want others to have nice things. The biggest critique I've seen of this movement so far goes something along the lines of, well, we don't need to protest for every little issue TF2 has, that's silly. And I agree. And that's not what we're doing, and anyone with open eyes could see that. This is not a little issue that we are protesting, and no, TF2 should not have yearly protests to fix things. We, as the TF2 community, shouldn't put up with something like this, an oversight that Valve just decided to not correct. It's not fair on those who can't afford premium accounts, it's not fair on those who just want to play the game without investing in it. If a well-known company were to release a new free-to-play shooting game today, but would lock all of its communication features behind a paywall, there would be uproar. So to those who question this movement, I have to ask why something like that would be considered unacceptable, yet something like TF2's current free-to-play state is. The answer is, neither are acceptable. Touching back on the protest thing I mentioned earlier, yes, I agree, we do not need yearly protests in order to fix things about this game. Part of the reason why fixed TF2 worked, and yes, I am fairly confident it did at least play some factor in Valve fixing the bot crisis, was because it was brand new, as in it had only ever really been attempted by the World of Warcraft community before. If we continually try to attempt things like this yearly, Valve will just stop listening, and so we shouldn't. TF2's biggest issues for the past 5 years were the fact that it was full of cheating bots and the fact that free-to-plays could not communicate. Any other community drama is just not at the top of the list. One of those things is fixed for now, and therefore we need the other one fixed too. Now, the third biggest criticism I've seen of this movement is, well, why can't free-to-players just, buy something really cheap on the Steam store or the Manco store or something and then get a premium account? And that by far is the worst argument I've ever heard towards anything TF2 related ever. If that becomes normalized and we become desensitized to it, when do the floodgates close? But also on a more personal note, you have to remember that some people just aren't in a position to spend money on an online game for one reason or the other. When I started out playing TF2, I was 11 and I wasn't allowed to make any online purchases. Even when I was 15 and I got my very first card, I still wasn't allowed to spend money on online games. It wouldn't be until a year later when I demonstrated to my parents that I had been wise with my money and therefore I could spend it how I liked that I was allowed to make in-game purchases. It's just not as simple as buy something cheap from the online store. And the final critical crowd I feel worth covering are the same ones that said that fixed TF2 wouldn't work, so give up. And well, yeah, it's not going to work if you don't try. This is something worth trying for. If it doesn't work, that's a shame, but at least we tried. That's better than not doing anything. And so that's why this movement exists, to try and get Valve to revert the awful changes they made to free-to-plays and their communicative features years ago. It was an awful idea back then, and it is still an awful idea now. Thank you very much everyone for watching. I hope this video was informative to you, and if you have any further questions on the matter, you can join the Discord server, linked down in the description below. There will be a follow-up video to this one on April 3rd, so stay tuned for that. But until then, I will see you later down the sunny road. Goodbye.